Somewhere in the Kalahari desert, in the middle of a dry season that has lasted for months, a hunter kneels over a riverbed that has not carried visible water in weeks. There is no river here, not on the surface. A hollow reed goes into the sand, down through a foot of dust and grit, until it reaches ground that is still faintly damp. And then the sucking begins, slow, patient, minutes at a time, pulling moisture up through the reed and into the mouth, then down a second straw into an empty ostrich eggshell. 20 minutes later, the shell is full. This is not a survival show stunt filmed for cameras. For the sand peoples of southern Africa, this is simply what happens when the water runs out. It has happened this way for longer than anyone can date with certainty. For most of human history, thirst was not something solved by a faucet or a vending machine. It was the fastest, most reliable way to die, faster than starvation, faster than most predators, and surviving it required something the human body never evolved to do on its own: outsource the problem to memory, technology, and culture. So how does a species with no built-in reservoir manage to spread into the driest places on Earth? The scene described above is a documented survival technique known as a sip well, still practiced in the Kalahari today and recorded across decades of ethnographic fieldwork, including the long-term research of anthropologist Richard Lee, who began living among the Jew Hoansi in the Dobe region of what is now Botswana in the 1960s. A sip well is dug by hand into sand that looks completely dry, packed with grass to act as a filter, and worked with a straw until water condenses and rises. The locations of these spots are not written down anywhere. They are memorized, generation after generation. Long before anyone in the region had access to paper, long before that fieldwork, humans were already solving a version of the same problem. At Diepkloof Rock Shelter on the coast of South Africa's Western Cape, archaeologists led by Pierre-Jean Texier uncovered ostrich eggshell fragments dated to roughly 60,000 years ago, deliberately engraved with geometric patterns and shaped for use as water containers. A single ostrich egg holds close to a liter. Carried, sealed, and reused, it functioned as one of the earliest canteens on record and one of the oldest known examples of symbolic marking made by human hands. But not every desert on Earth had ostriches. So what happened somewhere like the middle of Australia? In the arid interior, water-holding frogs solved a version of the problem for entire communities. Species such as Cyclorana platycephala survive drought by burrowing underground and storing water inside their bodies, in some cases water accounting for more than half their body weight, kept viable for years at a time. According to records held by institutions including the Western Australian Museum, Aboriginal people learned to locate these buried frogs by reading subtle surface cues in cracked, dry ground, dig them out, and gently squeeze the water into their mouths before releasing the frog unharmed. No instruction manual, just knowledge held inside a community passed forward. All of this makes it look like ancient humans simply figured water out. So why does the human body itself tell a completely different story? Here is the part that makes it strange. Humans are, biologically, bad at this. Between 1942 and 1944, physiologist E.F. Adolph led a series of United States Army-funded studies in the Colorado Desert in California, later published as Physiology of Man in the Desert. Adolph's data showed that a loss of roughly 10% of body weight in water is enough to become life-threatening. There is no internal reservoir to fall back on, no hump, no biological savings account, which is a polite way of saying that compared to almost any true desert animal. The human body is remarkably badly designed for the exact environments humans kept moving into. So if evolution never built in a backup tank, where did the real advantage come from? It did not come from anatomy. It came from engineering, and nowhere is that clearer than at Petra in modern-day Jordan, beginning in the last few centuries before the Common Era. The Nabataean people built a network of more than 200 cisterns, dams, and channels carved directly into rock, designed to capture rare desert rainfall and hold it for months at a time. Research by archaeologist Charles Ortloff into Petra's hydraulic systems shows the network could deliver more than 360 liters of water a day for each resident of a city that, at its height, may have held 20 to 30,000 people in a landscape that receives roughly 4 inches of rain a year. A few centuries earlier, in ancient Persia, a different kind of solution was already running underground. Qanats, gently sloped tunnels dug entirely by hand, some stretching more than 60 kilometers, carried groundwater from mountain aquifers to farms and cities without losing a single drop to surface evaporation. Geographer Dale Lightfoot, who has spent decades studying these systems, notes that some qanats built roughly 3,000 years ago are still functioning today, moving water through tunnels dug by hands that have been gone for 30 centuries. So the biology can be ruled out. The human body clearly never developed anything like a built-in water tank. Simple avoidance can be ruled out too. Humans didn't just stay near lakes and rivers, they pushed into the Kalahari, the Australian interior, the sandstone cliffs above Petra, some of the driest terrain on the planet. What's left is the real answer, and it was never stored in the body at all. It was stored in the group. Memorized locations, inherited technique, engineered infrastructure, a cultural reservoir built to replace the biological one evolution never provided. But there's a catch even the smartest culture in the world could never fully engineer around. Thirst, it turns out, is not simply the body reporting a fact. Research from neuroscientist Michael Farrell and colleagues, published in 2020, used brain imaging to show that fully hydrated volunteers who were simply asked to imagine being thirsty produced brain activity strikingly similar to people who were actually dehydrated. Thirst is not a neutral gauge reading off blood chemistry. It is something the brain actively constructs, which means the same system built to protect a person can also be talked into false alarms, or, in genuine extreme dehydration, start to fail. Past a certain point of fluid loss, sodium concentration in the blood rises sharply, brain cells lose water, and the result is confusion and delirium. The exact physiological collapse Adolph's desert studies were designed to measure and prevent. None of this knowledge disappeared because the problem went away. It disappeared because the problem got quietly outsourced, first to city wells, then to pipes buried under streets, then to a tap that turns on before anyone has to think about it. The sip wells of the Kalahari, the eggshell canteens of Diepkloof, the frogs of the Australian desert, the cisterns of Petra, the qanats of Persia, all of it was memory turned into infrastructure, refined across tens of thousands of years, and almost none of it survives in the mind of the average person alive today. The ancient alarm system is still wired in exactly the way it always was. A brain built to sound the loudest warning it has for the one resource a human body can survive only a few days without. It's just waiting, now, for a threat that almost no one alive today has ever had to answer and wouldn't know how to.